Welcome back to Call to Create. I'm Connie Sokol, your host. And today, I literally can't stop smiling. We have the most fabulous, engaging, hilarious, and has done it all guest on our beautiful show that helps creatives on their creative journey and to do it for him. And I cannot wait for you to learn from all of his life wisdom and just from his beautiful soul. Dan Clark, welcome.
Thank you so much, Connie. Appreciate you. I tell everybody, Sokol must be Portuguese for awesome woman, so go for it.
I'll take it.
Absolutely.
You need to know, Dan is a dear friend, but I think probably half the world could say the same thing. So that's why when we were talking, even before we went on, we're like, oh, we are not going to prep questions here. Well, I prepped him, but he doesn't know what I'm going to ask. And we're just going to have the kitchen table fun. Like we're at lunch and we're just going to dish. So put in your seatbelts and just get in and get ready. Get your pens ready because you are going to learn so much from this marvelous man. Now, as you know, I always have to give the official bio because you will not believe. I got the papers in and I'm doing the research. It's 3 pages, people. Like, how do you introduce this man? I don't know. So I had to shorten it. I can only hit the high notes. And you literally will be going, that can't be true. But it's true. This man is what he claims to be. He has been named one of the top 10 motivational speakers in the world and has been inducted into Professional Speakers Hall of Fame. He's spoken all over the globe to over 6 million people in 73 countries. He's met with presidents and dignitaries and celebrities. He's appeared on over 500 TV and radio shows, including Oprah and Glenn Beck. He's been in magazines, Success, and Forbes. He's the CEO of a successful multi-million-dollar international communications company. And he just had to, put his finger in his collar. He's getting a little uncomfortable, which tells you he is still a meek man. He's flown in a U-2 spy plane and into the Earth's atmosphere. He's received Utah's Distinguished Service Medal and Utah Father of the Year. He's also been a best-selling author and contributor to the Chicken Soup for the Soul series and an award-winning athlete, which the obvious question then is, Dan, when do you sleep? Like, seriously, what? How have you been able to do all of these incredible, amazing things through the years and still be the most authentic, down-to-earth person? I'm not kidding. This is my right out of the gate question with you because I don't know how you do it. How do you do it?
You're so sweet. I felt like I was at my own funeral. Thanks for that intro. Regardless of what we say, I think most people end up with a scarcity mindset, a scarcity mentality, because we always seem like we're overwhelmed and we raise our hands like a badge of honor when someone says, are you a multitasker? And most people say, yes, I am. What we do when we say I'm a multitasker is we actually admit in public that we're lousy at a lot of things. So the idea is to not be a multitasker, but to think like a juggler, because the juggler only controls the ball in her hand. Once she's let go of the ball, she's relinquished control, can't do anything about it. So why worry about it? Why fret? Why let it overwhelm you? And just concentrate on the ball, on the priority at hand. What would happen if we just blocked out 2.5 hours with no distractions, phones turned off, and we just focus on being present in the moment? That allows us to accomplish so much more than just doing it here and there. So there's no reason to have a scarcity mentality. We must wake up every morning grateful for the talents that God has given us and make sure that we utilize everything in our power, physically, mentally, spiritually, socially, financially, and with the support of our family to become the best version of ourselves. So there's no excuse for anyone to say, how do you do all that? Or I could never do that. Or, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. You don't understand. Not on your life. You can do whatever you want to do and accomplish everything you want to accomplish if you just figure out how to do it.
And I love what you just said. My wheels are turning. And the things that I've been saying I want to do, want to read, and want to whatever, I can make that happen. And I love how you shared working with your rhythm too.
Because your show's about creativity, everything about you triggers passion, creativity, and imagination. What you do is you leave your environment, you change your environment and seek the energy of the beauty outside, the energy of a flower, the energy of a sunrise, a sunset, whatever the case may be. But get out of your environment, leave your cubicle, leave your office, leave your study, leave your home. Second thing, do something active to change your physiology. And number 3, change your thinking. get away from what you're focused in on and do something different. This morning, I'm a rock and roller. I write country songs. I'm a rhythm and blues guitar player, and I love classic rock. Go figure. Usually in the morning, I'd shave and get ready to shower and get dressed to rock and roll. I love the Beatles. I love Jimi Hendrix. I've seen him live. Why did I change my environment? Why did I change my physiology? Why did I change my mindset this morning to prepare to be interviewed by you? Because this is a sacred calling that you have. This is spiritually based. So instead of listening to rock and roll, I turned on the Mo tab and I listened. I listened all morning long for over an hour to Come Ye Saints, to God Be With You Till We Meet Again, to the Spirit of God Like a Fire Is Burning. I got so different. I received so much different energy from just changing the music I listened to, that it changed my focus and prepared me for this amazing interview by the amazing Connie Sokol.
You know what's crazy is I had that same thought. The thought that comes to me is, I think it's in Matthew 5:1, where it says, and about the Savior, it says, and when he was set, and then his disciples came unto him. I think that's what it is, or the multitude came unto him. And I've always remembered that, especially when I was a mother of littles, that I needed to get set for the day, and that would set the tone of my day. And even if I just took a few minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, but that intention of, okay, I need to connect with him. I need to get set in that sacred space, no matter what's coming today, then the whole day was going to go better. And especially for creatives, I don't know if you have found the same thing, but I feel like when I'm on that kind of living in that little bit of a higher energy or that higher plane, that I feel like I'm a more open conduit to whatever he's trying to convey to me, whether it's music or art or acting or podcasting, whatever it might be. Have you found that same thing? Is there something you do before you speak? You've spoken on big stages, globally, all over the place. Is there something that within this practice, or is there a gospel principle that prepares you and keeps you in that space when you are speaking?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Connie. I love the parables of Jesus. That's why I'm a storyteller.
Mm.
And the parable of the 10 talents just happens to be my favorite, which is the answer to your question. Because if you think about it and you do the research, if you look at the historical backdrop of a denarii, it's one coin that basically represents a full day's wages. And one talent equals 6,000 denarii, which means you must work 16 and a half years every day in a row without missing a day to earn one talent. Keep that in mind. 16 and a half years of work to earn one talent. And in the parable of the 10 talents, the wealthy owner, if you will, he gave one servant 5 talents, another 2 talents, and another 1 talent. And the interesting scripture is verse 15, according to their several abilities. In other words, we're not born with the exact same talents and abilities as anyone else. We are unique. And so if you look at that scripture, that powerful parable, to the one that was given 5, he duplicated that, increased another 100% and turned it into 10 talents. The one who was given 2 multiplied that 100% return and ended up with 4 talents. Huge difference between 10 talents and 4 talents, but you'll notice that the reward is exactly the same.
And the
But
response
to the one who was given only 1 talent, according to his several ability, he was afraid and he buried the talent, and it ticked off the owner, and he basically took that 1 talent from him and gave it to who better managed his 5 talents to turn into 10. What do we learn from that answers your question? Number 1, success comes through hard work. Number 2, we are held accountable. Number 3, we work for the master, not for ourselves. Number 4, according to their several ability, we don't compete against others, we compete against ourselves. And number 5, what goes around comes around. So number 4, we're competing against ourselves. And so in getting ourselves set, we have to decide what is required in our own experience, in our own personality, in our own environment to get us ready to speak on a large stage to 80,000 people, to speak in a sacrament meeting, to conduct a one-on-one intervention with someone whom we love. We have to get set. Here's the story I want to share. Many years ago, we had a mall downtown Salt Lake City called the Crossroads Mall. It was off of the main street. And I had a serious business meeting one day, and that day was a blizzard snowstorm. The wind was blowing the snow sideways. It was piercing my skin. I drove around the block twice looking for a parking spot. I finally found one around the corner about a quarter of a mile away. I had no overcoat. I get out of my car and I'm weathering the wind. I'm weathering the storm. It's a headwind blowing in my face. I get to the entrance of the Crossroads Mall, and the two side entrance doors are locked. And the only way into the warmth of that building is through a circular revolving turnstile door. And therefore, there was 9 people standing in line, waiting their turn to enter the mall. 9. I'm the 10th waiting, freezing to death. And there to the side of the revolving door is the Salvation Army bell ringer, all bundled up, red bucket, ringing the bell. And as I'm standing there, freezing to death, waiting to go inside, out of the foggy, snowy, blizzardy day emerges a gentleman who is homeless, no coat. His white Converse shoe had a hole in the front, and his big toe and other toe were protruding out of it. He walks up to the bell ringer, and I'm there long enough to watch him turn his pocket inside out and out loud count 93 cents, put it in the bucket, say Merry Christmas, and continue walking and disappear into the foggy day. He gave all he had. Talk about the widow's mite. I've never forgotten that experience, Connie. So now, fast forward, we've parked the family car in the conference center parking lot. We've emerged out on North, and as you turn left and walk down towards Main Street and turn right before you enter the temple on the Main Street entrance, there's always the same woman, always there every day, same cardboard sign, begging for alms, just asking for some help. So we park our car, we're walking across that crosswalk, and my children were with me. We were going to attend a wedding. They already know this story. They know that every single morning I go to the ATM and I get $20. And I go to a 7-Eleven to turn it into $1 bills. Because of that experience that I had with that gentleman who was homeless on Main Street in front of the Crossroads Mall, never again have I ever walked past anyone who is homeless. Never again have I walked around them or tried to avoid them or stepped over them. Why? It doesn't have anything to do with them. It has everything to do with me setting my mindset, recalibrating my attitude of gratitude to enter that day with non-judgmental friendship, unconditional love. I'm not doing it for anyone else except myself. And so, yes, there is selfish motivation. The altruistic egoist is the most powerful person on our planet, all taking while always giving, because we get more out of it than the dollar bill given to that person who is homeless ever got out of our money. We need to consciously reset every single morning, and that's the way I choose to do it.
I love, and what I love what you were saying, and I hear that you say, yes, it comes back to me because it does. It's our ownership and it's us taking charge of that and using our agency. But what I really hear over that umbrella is the way that you reset, the way you prepare, it really is focusing on the one. And that's focusing on him, because that's what he did. He focused on the one. He focused, right now I need to prepare myself. Now I need to go out and be able to focus on others. And it's focusing on that one. And I think that is such a huge piece of why you've been able to so successfully do so many things and do it so consistently and for so long. This is years of setting for the day and seeing the one and focusing on the one and putting those coins in the coffers, those emotional and spiritual coins of seeing the one. I think that's one of the beautiful things that you do is you continually, when you're speaking, you focus on and see people in the audience and reach out to that one. So I want to segue just really quickly. You've been through all these things that looks almost like a charmed life, but it's not. You have had difficult experiences. I mean, you were going to be a professional athlete. You were all set on this one path. And then you got injured, paralyzed. Can you share with us for a minute? Go back to those days of you had your whole life before you. You had this plan, I'm sure, in your mind. And then all of a sudden it's gone. And now you have to make a new plan. What shifted for you there and how did you make that shift?
When I was 8 years old, I had cancer in my throat. I still remember being in the primary children's hospital. And that's my first memory of having that warrior spirit that I think I was born with. Meaning when someone says you can't, I say, oh yeah, watch me. That I have to get back up and go again. And I believe that that's one of the gifts, a spiritual gift. I wish everyone on the planet had it. We all can learn it. We all can develop it. But when I was 8 years old, I basically said, I'm not going to die. And then fast forward, I was a projected #1 draft pick into the National Football League, letter from Al Davis at the Oakland Raiders, invitation trial by the Kansas City Royals as a baseball pitcher coming out of high school. I was an athlete. That's who I was. That's my identity. Got all my attention. And played at the University of Utah one day in practice. The dream ended. We had a tackling drill. Coach blew the whistle. Two of us ran into each other full speed. Lyle's helmet crashed into my helmet in a violent head-on collision. My right shoulder was smashed into the cutting edge of my fiberglass pads, and we slammed to the ground. And when Lyle got off of me, my eye drooped. I had loss of speech. I couldn't talk anymore. My right side was paralyzed. My arm dangled helplessly at my side. Coach comes running over. Clark, you all right? What happened? A doctor that was present on the field, he came over and he examined me. He pulls the coach aside. He says, Clark's got serious nerve damage. In fact, he might even have serious brain damage. My coach looks at him and says, how will we ever know? Nice guy. Finally, my eye went back to normal. My speech came back. I could basically talk again, but my right side stayed paralyzed and my arm dangled at my side. I stayed paralyzed for 14 months. I went to 16 of the very, very best doctors in all of North America, 15 of whom told me I would never get any better. And if you ever heard that, what happens if you believe it? You never get any better. And I hit what I thought was a downward spiraling, fast-moving collision where I would actually hit rock bottom. How many of us have used that vernacular to describe when something's gone south in our personal and professional worlds? I've hit rock bottom. Well, now, fast forward, I've recovered. Now that I've recovered, the three most frequently asked questions are, Clark, why did you go to so many different doctors? The answer is very important, especially to this podcast, especially to anyone who views this podcast or is a member of the LDS Publishing and Media Association. I kept going from doctor to doctor until I found one who believed I would get better. Yeah. Question number 2, what took me so long to recover? What took me so long to get back up and go again, to really take my recovery serious? Answer, I was asking the wrong questions. Or any of you? I was asking the doctors how to get better when I should have been asking myself why. And once we answer why, the how to becomes clear and simple, not easy. We still have to put in the work. We still have to do hard things, but it became clear and simple. And question number 3, Clark, what do you mean you thought you hit rock bottom? Let me just put it into perspective. Regardless of how tough times get, regardless of what has happened to you in your life, nothing happens to you, everything happens for you. No one ever hits rock bottom. We hit rock foundation. We hit rock belief. We hit the baseline core values on which we were raised. Look up the scriptures, especially in Mosiah. Who is our rock? It's the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. We've got to focus in on what our beliefs are and answer right now, today in this podcast, and every day when we arise, is your belief, your current belief, strong enough, deep enough, and true enough to equip you and empower you to respond to rapid change? And if not, why not? And if when, why not right now? Too many people are always worried about where they're going. When my Aunt Lucy was 63 years old, she started walking 5 miles every day. Now she's 91 and we don't know where she is. We laugh. But the number one limiting belief that holds us back is always trying to figure out that strategic direction. Where am I going? If you lie about where you are, the directions won't work. So the creative process has to begin right where you are right now. The recovery process, becoming better today than you were yesterday, taking yourself from where you are to where you want to be, has to begin right now, and every right now.
Oh my goodness, we are so blessed to have your expertise and your wisdom and your gospel groundedness.
Come follow me, preach my gospel. It's all about learning to teach and guide as Jesus taught and guided. He always went to where his audience was. He spoke their language. When he spoke with the Pharisees, he quoted scriptures. Woman at the well, he talked about water. Talking to the shepherds, he talked about sheep. Talking to the commoner, he talked about, bread of life. We have to go where that audience member is so that we can understand there's a difference between teaching and talking. There's a difference between activity and accomplishment. I've taught public speaking at the university level for 11 years. Taught at the MBA program at Westminster College. I taught in the undergrad at UVU. Then I taught in the MBA program at UVU. I've taught at the University of Utah. I taught 4.5 years at BYU, public speaking as a Ute in a red tie, of course. And what I teach my students, which I teach in my speaker boot camps and my story selling master classes, is that if you're nervous before you speak, it means you think it's about you. But if you're excited before you speak, it means it's about them. Seek to bless, not impress. So I share with the world that when we get through speaking, if everybody leaves impressed with me, I've blown it. But if everybody leaves impressed with themselves, with their untapped potential, identifying their limiting beliefs, and knowing that they're on this earth for a reason, if they actually leave every single one of my presentations or a one-on-one dinner or lunch or encounter at a drinking fountain at a meeting, if everybody can leave me saying, I like me best when I'm with you, I want to see you again, then I've accomplished my goal. I've made it about them, not about me. If we're truly there for them, we have to speak their language and figure out a way to customize our delivery so that they understand. It's our responsibility to do everything in our power to create the right environment and teach the right principle, the truth, in the right way at the right time, really believing what I said earlier, seek to bless, not impress.
Absolutely. I almost feel like, well, amen. By what you're saying, I'm so on fire over here, and I know the listeners are going to be too, but the thoughts that have been popcorning in my mind. Sister Corden, Bonnie Corden, said in her talk, I think it's That We May See, she said, waving your flashlight is great, but focusing your flashlight is even better. And I love that you made the point that not just big stage speaking, we look at you, we look at other speakers, and often audience members and listeners to the podcast, they think, well, that's the only way that I can use speaking. You had spoken to so many different audiences. I know that you've even spoken to just a handful of people, and it actually turned out to be an incredible experience and a blessing to you in the future. What's your favorite kind of audience? And is there one that comes to mind that you're like, I remember speaking for these people and it was just a powerful, memorable moment?
What we have to understand is that when we start focusing in on the audience needs, what we also have to do is go into our own bag of tricks and figure out stories and anecdotes and jokes with a message and ways in which we can communicate with them. We have to customize what we're saying. And that's why I really talk a lot about storytelling, story selling, which means we can use our own personal stories and personal examples to connect with these people. So when we have a chance to talk with someone, the most important thing we can do is get to know who they are before we engage them. When we start understanding who the audience is, it's easy for us to connect with them on that deepest level. Show up with our desire to teach and to change lives using what we bring to the table. So let me give you an example, if I might. So there's a great gentleman. He used to be an administrator at BYU before he passed, named Scott Strong. He wrote the song called I'll Build You a Ring. And it's based on a true story that happened up in the Bear Lake Valley. I recorded that song with a group called Sunshade and Rain. And I used to conclude my speeches by singing that little song. What a powerful message. Little boy Jamie, his mom dies, families are forever. Yeah, preaching the gospel, not offending anyone. And I flew into Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. My flight was late. I picked up at the airport. And when I walked into that hotel, on the bottom floor was where the banquet was. 1,000 people, head table. I'm the keynote speaker. I didn't have time to check in. They whisked me and I put my bag and my briefcase down. They whisked me to the head table. I'm getting my thoughts together. I'm looking at the audience. I'm introduced. I speak. I get to the end of my speech and I sang, "I'll build you a rainbow." Not a dry eye in the place. I shook a few hands, kissed a few babies, a few photos, gracious. I go up to the second floor to check in. And as I get to the top of the stairs and turn to walk to the registration counter, this young couple, this man and woman, are sobbing. And they literally ran up to me and gave me this group hug. I'm like, you got to be kidding. And the lady says, "The song you just sang has started our healing process. Our little girl was just killed 2 weeks ago and we don't know what to do." And that song touched our hearts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Could we have your address and send you something? I'm like, yeah, I forgot about it. About 10 days later, I get this handwritten letter, details of how their little beautiful daughter had been killed in an automobile accident. And they said, "We don't know what religion you are, but we know you're a man of faith. Please accept our $100 as a tithing payment towards your religious tradition. God bless you, Mr. Clark." I still have that letter. We never know who's going to be in the audience when we unashamedly do our best to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ in our own little humble way and allowing the Spirit to touch their heart and bring them to Christ, to bring them to concepts of families are forever. We've got to do something with the gospel of Jesus Christ. What are you going to do with your testimony? What are you going to do with your scriptural knowledge? What are you going to do with your stories and experiences to change the world one story at a time? That's what a creative does. That's why we're on this earth, called to use our sense of humor, called to use our belief in stories and parables to change the world. That's why it's such an honor to be your friend. It's such an honor to be on this podcast.
Absolutely gorgeous and so spot on. I'm thinking of that adage that we go through everything once for ourselves, and then after that, it's for everyone else. And I think about that. Every one of us has these life experiences, whether we feel to write them or sing them or write songs about them like you do or speak about them. We have these experiences that can connect us and give the Spirit an opportunity to witness the truth of that. And that's what the Spirit does. That's the pathways He'll put us on. You were going to be an athlete and He put you on this path and you excelled at it. You got skills and understanding. You've learned how to set for the day. You've learned how to focus on the one. You've learned how to keep connected to Him so you can connect to others more fully, to be open to Him. It's just this gorgeous path and cycle that He allows us to be a part of. Thank you so much for sharing today.
Just for the record, because my voice hurts now, I've had vocal surgery since. I want everybody to go to my website, danclark.com, go to my music page, scroll down and actually listen to my recording of "I'll Build You a Rainbow." Climb the highest mountain with the Oklahoma Baptist Choir. Why not listen to "Friends Are Friends Forever"? A good friend of mine, Michael W. Smith, he wrote that song, but I recorded it so that I can actually share this music from my past that I can no longer share in my present. Come on, Connie, help me.
I love it. I'm going on there today and I'm just going to sit and go down memory lane. Now, as we close with our call to create, we always want to ask that one final question, and then we want to hear what you've got on the horizon that you're working on. But this one final question, has there been one tip, one grounding principle, one insight that has been sort of a lodestar for you along these years of helping you on your creative path?
That's a great question. Yeah. The only person you need to be better than is the person you were yesterday. That if you're serious about being a creative and making a difference in the world, you need to answer 2 questions. Number one, what would you drive 5 hours one way to say to somebody for free? If you wouldn't, you don't have a calling to be a creative. You don't have a calling to make a difference. You haven't been called to be an author or a speaker or a musician. And let's just call it what it is. Number 2, the tip of that spear question. If you had 1 hour to live, what would you say? Not what would you do? I'd spend more time with my family. I wouldn't go to work. I'd go fishing. No, no, no. Not what would you do? What would you say to somebody through the spoken, the written, and the musical word melody? And once you answer those questions, then we have to understand that your story is every bit as important as mine. It's just as compelling as mine is. You have to believe you have a story. And in that context, you have to remember that my football injury, my paralysis, shattered dreams, broken heart, clearly is one of the best things that ever happened. Don't misunderstand. My accident isn't one of the best things that ever happened to me, but who I became as a man and what I learned about time and priorities, and that God really is in charge as a result of going through that setback clearly makes it one of the best things that's ever happened. I would have never met Connie Sokol. I would have never been on that stage all those years ago at the Superdome. I would have never been on this podcast. I would have never been able to speak to all these millions of people if I hadn't have been paralyzed. Let's accept and invite ourselves to create on a disciplined, on purpose basis. We need to create discomfort in our lives. We need to understand, as we said at the very beginning, nothing happens to you, everything happens for you. You can get anything in this life that you want if you're just willing to help enough other people get what they want. Wealth flows through you, not to you. We're really here to serve others. So in conclusion, remember, we find our stories and our material in 4 sources: your life. Number 2, your transitional experiences. 3rd, significant emotional events, SEE. And once we take the time to learn the life lessons and turn them into a polished, professionally crafted story that we can share with the world, we are on our way to being an author, to being a speaker. And the last source, make a bucket list. I've soared to the edge of space. I've flown all the fighter jets, all the bombers. I've been downrange 8 times to Iraq, Afghanistan, fired up the troops. I was on the Olympic Committee, ran the Olympic torch, died with presidents and sheikhs. And I just, a normal little guy who went to high school and those I grew up with really believed 7th grade was going to be my senior year. The 3 years when I was a junior in high school almost killed the whole faculty. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody.
Oh my goodness. And I love that. If it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. That's why we love you, Dan. So tell us really quickly, what's the best way for people to find you? Because people are going to want to find you.
I'm a storyteller, primary contributor, author, all the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And I've written 37 books. My book called Speak Like a Pro, which was the syllabus and textbook, if you will, that I wrote for my 11 years and I taught advanced public speaking at the university level. I have speaker boot camps. They're 2.5 days long, where we actually go through the 8 elements required to craft an amazing speech that listeners love. And we talk about how to get paid to speak, how to market yourself, how to find the audiences, how to do what you need to do to get your message out if you're one of those who know it's time to become that spokesperson for Christ. I also have 2.5 days master classes just on the process of storytelling, so that you can make every story funny, evocative by adding a quote in a scripture, and emotional so people remember it. With the caution, remember, knowledge is power. Don't just put up a PowerPoint conversation. If I'm in your audience, I will rush the stage and I will tackle you. Do not kill us death by PowerPoint. We need to understand that knowledge is power, but knowledge has no heart. We don't learn to know, we learn to do. All the information in the world is going to make a person successful. Reason leads to conclusions, but it is emotion that leads to action. And that's why we need to be like Jesus. We need to craft parables and become an extraordinary storyteller. So please look for my speaker boot camps, the art and science of public speaking, and then my story selling master classes that can take everything that you learn from any other course. And I promise, regardless if you're a beginning speaker or a Hall of Fame speaker, I can take you to the next level.
I love it. And you can go to danclark.com and just get all the scoop.
And you can follow me on Instagram at Dan Clark Speak, because I drop these 5-minute videos.
They're hilarious.
Please follow me on Instagram, Dan Clark Speak. Yeah, that's my favorite.
So good. We will definitely have links in the show notes. So everybody look for those, as well as his contact information, because I know they're going to come in droves. They're going to be like, I'm ready to do this for him. And that's what we are hoping for. Whatever it is, singing, writing, art, whatever your expression is, whatever you are feeling, take that inspiration and elevate it by doing it for him. We're so grateful to have you here today, Dan. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And for those who have loved this interview, besides myself, that I've adored it, please go below and you can rate, review, and subscribe and check out all the other interviews. We have Al Caraway, Lisa Valentine Clark. We have beautiful people who are sharing how they've made their journey and help you on your journey to feel called, creative.